What's going on, guys? It is Friday, May 10th, about 9:20 a.m. right now. Just got done with fasted cardio. I'm just getting ready to cook breakfast right now, about one coffee deep. About to have another one. We got our morning cinnamon zins in. You know how it is. Got to heat the body up with some caffeine and nicotine to get things rolling. I'm currently wrapping up week 9 of this growing phase out of 20, and I will put on the screen so far from the very beginning of the growing phase to now my morning check-in photos. Keep in mind, a lot of these transformations you guys see, people will use like a morning check-in photo and then a picture of them all pumped up or some shit to make the difference look more drastic. But I'm gonna use 2 fasted morning check-in photos so you guys can see what the real results look like. It's about an 18-pound difference as well, just so you can keep that in mind. And on top of that, we're about 42 ounces of water deep right now. Drank one of these during cardio. Gonna drink another full one before training, just because you gotta keep that water intake high. It's actually difficult to drink as much water as you need to drink during the day. I drink 1.5 gallons a day, and I need to be constantly chugging this shit. Otherwise, I get all backed up and stuff. And because I'm in a growing phase, I already have to eat a ton of food. So if I get backed up and bloated and stuff, it just makes it a living hell. So we're constantly chugging water. But in today's video, we're gonna be talking about setting up your split for training, because this is another one of those things, just like everything else in fitness, that people overcomplicate the ever-living fuck out of. And they do one training split for a couple months and they're like, oh, you know, I'm developing imbalances or something, but they haven't even been training long enough to even realize if they're having an imbalance. They just don't really know what the fuck they're looking at. So we're gonna be talking about that today. That way you guys can set up a training split that works for you and that you can stay on for a year, 2 years, and actually see if it works. Because that's really how long you need to be on a specific training split to really see what changes need to be made. Because like I always say, putting on muscle mass takes a lot more time than you actually think. And a lot of people in their first couple years of lifting will look at their physique and they'll be like, oh, well, this body part's a strong point, this one's a weak point, I need to be hitting this one 3 times a week. But the reality is, a lot of times they haven't even put on enough muscle yet to realize what their strengths are and what their weak points are. Like, for example, somebody that's like played soccer all their life and their legs are bigger, so they're like, oh, my legs are a genetic strong point, I don't need to hit them as much. But then they actually start training and they come to realize that they aren't a strong point. It's just that they've been training them for years and years, so they're bigger than other muscle groups. Imagine if you only hit arms for 3 years straight, no other muscle groups, and your arms were bigger, so you're like, oh, I don't need to hit them as often because they're a genetic strong point. Well, the reality is they aren't a genetic strong point, or at least you don't know yet. It's just you've been training them for 3 years straight, so they're bigger. But then you might start training and come to realize they grow a lot slower than other body parts. So they're actually a weak point. It's just you've been training them more. So a majority of people, especially beginners, don't need a training program that is specifically tailored to them because they don't even know their strengths and weak points yet. And it just all plays into this whole overthinking things, trying to overdo things and changing things too frequently. So then you never get real results. And then I'm gonna say this again because I wanna pound it into you guys' heads. Your training split, nothing you do matters if you're not eating enough food to begin with. Like, I remember seeing Alex Eubank making TikToks and shit saying like, oh, I'm changing my split to this because I need to grow my arms. But he wasn't even eating enough food to grow to begin with. But it doesn't matter what split you're doing, how hard you're training, or any of that shit if you're not eating enough food to begin with. So don't even think about your split or your training or any of that stuff if you're not eating enough food to grow to begin with, because that is the foundation, that is the key. So if you're eating enough food to begin with, then we can start to talk about your split and training with intensity and all that good stuff. So right now we're getting ready for the gym. I got my meal packed, 360 grams of white rice and 7 ounces of chicken, and we're about to make the intro workout drink. But real quick, as you guys know, I like to keep you guys up to date with my mental health and the things I deal with and stuff, just kind of in hopes that if somebody watching this deals with the same things, I understand how paralyzing anxiety, depression, and stuff like that can be, and how it can really hold you back from reaching your goals and doing the shit you want to do in life, because it feels so heavy. It feels like it weighs you down, and it feels like that and it makes it feel like you can't do things physically, even though it's just mental. So today I woke up feeling just crazy anxious. Like, my thoughts are moving so fast that I can't even grasp one of them. It feels like a tornado. Like, I don't even know why I'm feeling like this. I've been thinking about it all day, and I'm very good at self-reflection and kind of looking at things that happened over the past couple of days and talking with myself and trying to figure this stuff out. But sometimes the bitch of it is that there is not really a reason whenever it comes to this stuff sometimes. There's nothing that's happened over the last couple of days or anything like that that has sparked this, but it's still happening, and it's just this whirlwind of thoughts that are moving so quick that I can't even grasp any of them, and it's almost like paralyzing. Like, I could just sit in bed all day and just stare at the ceiling, just consumed by this whirlwind of thoughts that are just going on in my head, and just stare at the ceiling, just stuck there. Like, it makes it like hard to move. I don't really know how to explain it other than that. And an older version of me probably would have done that, probably would have just laid in bed all day, stared at the fucking ceiling, maybe tried to watch some movies, because sometimes movies in these situations are a great escape. That's why like going to movie theaters has always been one of my favorite things to do, even growing up, is because if it's a good movie and I can really get into it and I'm kind of transferred into this other universe, I escape this momentarily, you know what I mean? And so an older version of me probably would have done that all day. I mean, I know an older version of me would have done that, but I've built this newer version of myself that doesn't allow that to happen, that knows that I can't just let this stop me from doing the things I have to do today. So we're getting ready for the gym, even though it's a little bit later than usual, because it did kind of halter me a bit and I did kind of zone out at the wall a bit and just kind of get consumed by it a little bit, but we're still fucking going. I still have a bunch of client applications I have to get back to, which I'm going to get to. I still have the YouTube video I have to edit for today and record the rest of this video for today that I'm going to do. I'm going to do the shit I have to do. It's just that this is going on as well, and I just accept it, and it's like, whatever, you know? Because at the end of the day, doing the things that I have to do, even while feeling like this, is gonna make me stronger. Like right now, whenever I'm recording this video even, it's so hard for me to talk because I have all this other shit going on up here that it's hard for me to concentrate on what I'm trying to say and articulate it correctly. But like I said, it is what it is. You can't let these kinds of things stop you from doing the things that you physically have to do, because it's just in your head, it's just mental, and you have to remind yourself of that. And you have to remind yourself that your goals and the things that you have to do during the day to be where you want to be in life are far more important than just how you're feeling while you're doing them. And that if you're able to do the things you have to do while you're feeling this way, then you're going to be able to do them 10 times better whenever you're not feeling this way. You know what I mean? For example, if you're able to run a mile in, 7 minutes with 45-pound weights strapped to your back, you're gonna be able to run that same mile in maybe like 6 minutes without the weight, right? And the weight is, the mental anxiety, depression, whatever you're dealing with, making it a bit more difficult. You still ran the mile a little bit slower, but now your legs are stronger because of it, and you can run the mile without the weights even faster. It's just something we deal with, but I like letting you guys know this kind of stuff. That way you understand that I don't always feel motivated. I don't always feel like doing the things I have to do. I have mental blockades that form in my mind that make things hard for me to do. It's just that I haven't gotten to where I am in life by letting them hold me back or slow me down or stop me. I've gotten to where I am in life because I've learned to operate even while dealing with this stuff, and ultimately understanding that doing the things I have to do is crucial to getting through this and crucial to becoming a better version of myself. So now let's talk about your split a little bit. A lot of people really like doing push-pull legs, because it's really simple, right? But a big problem with that is a lot of people end up neglecting their arms and push-pull legs because you're hitting your arms after you've already done your major muscle groups like your chest and your back. So you're already fatigued from doing that, and you just kind of typically end up half-assing your arms. I don't really think that it's necessary to hit major muscle groups twice a week. I think it's a lot more beneficial to give it your fucking everything and go extremely hard once a week and let it recover until the following week. So I think a much better split that most people can use is doing like maybe push-pull legs, a rest day, and then arms, shoulders, rest day. I think that's a way better split because it gives your arms and your shoulders a full day to themselves, and your muscles are getting enough time to recover in between hitting each muscle group. Because you have to keep in mind at the end of the day, the muscle growth is occurring during recovery, during the rest time, not whenever you're in the gym fucking the muscle group up. Because whenever it comes to the gym, a lot of people get in this mindset of quantity over quality, right? They think, oh, I'm gonna do a fuck ton of volume, a fuck ton of stuff, and work really hard and beat the shit out of the muscles, and they're gonna grow a ton. But what you're really looking for is higher quality reps in a lower quantity in order to grow the most muscle, because you want the muscle to be able to recover enough to where you can progressively overload the next time you hit it. And then whenever you are at a point where you need a bit more of an advanced split that's more tailored to you, you find your weak points and you hit them, and you hit your weak point maybe twice a week. My split is a quad focused leg day on Monday, Tuesday back, and then Wednesday chest and shoulders, because my shoulders are a strong point, so I don't really need to hit them that hard. I hit them after chest. Then a rest day, and then I hit back and hammies, and then I hit arms. So arms get their own day because they're a weak point. Back gets hit twice because it's a weak point. And so that is just for me, for example. That's what it would look like if you're tailoring your split to cater to your weak points. But don't forget, a lot of you guys don't really even have weak points yet. You just haven't really developed enough muscle mass to even see where your weak and strong points are at yet. And then as far as rep ranges go, my rep ranges are typically between 8 to 12 reps. Sometimes it's 8 to 10, sometimes it's 10 to 12. And then sometimes there's rest pause sets, stuff like that. And then on movements like a chest fly, for example, on a pec deck, the rep range is closer to like 15 reps, just because with a movement like that, think about it, you're putting a ton of stress on the shoulder, so we can use a lighter weight in that higher rep range to still go to failure. The reason I don't do higher reps is because whenever I think about it, if you're doing higher reps, there's more factors that come into play to you failing before maybe your muscles fail. So if you're doing 20 reps, you might run out of breath before your muscles actually go to failure, right? So if you're not even hitting muscular failure, then you're not going to grow as much than if you did like 8 reps where you're not out of breath and your muscle is actually going to failure first. And whenever it comes to changing your split around and stuff, I'm of the belief of if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Growing muscle takes a lot longer than a lot of people really realize. So maybe they'll do one split for like 2 months. They'll be like, oh, this isn't working, and switch it around. But you're not really gonna be able to see how well that split is working. But you're really not gonna be able to see how well that split worked unless you started your growing phase lean, insulin sensitive, then did the growing phase, and then you cut down to about the same leanness that you started with, and then you can look at the growth that actually occurred during that 4 or 5 month growth period and see if it worked well. But a lot of people don't really do this. So, they'll start maybe their growing phase pretty lean, do a growing phase, and then compare themselves at the end of the growing phase to the beginning of the cut. And they'll look at maybe their arms and be like, oh, they grew a fuck ton, this split's working amazing. But maybe they don't realize that they hold a lot of fat in their arms and a lot of glycogen in their arms. And so their arms just appear a lot bigger than they are. But in the reality is if they cut down to the same body fat percentage that they started at, then they'd realize maybe they didn't grow their arms as much as they thought they did. Because one thing not a lot of people really realize is that everybody holds their fat in different places. Some people hold more glycogen in different muscle groups better than other muscle groups, which will cause those muscle groups to look a lot bigger than they really are, right? So for example, my legs and my arms stay lean year round, no matter how fat I really get. But my core and my lower back hold most of my fat, and then my chest and my shoulders stay fairly lean as well. So sometimes my arms look really small whenever I'm growing because they don't have any fat on them, really. They're really lean. But then whenever I cut down and everything else is lean as well, they look more proportionate. So you also have to take that into consideration because you can't really do a real comparison unless you're comparing you at the same body fat percentage in both pictures and you're lean in both pictures, because like I said, the fat and the glycogen and water and all that good stuff is going to make certain body parts look bigger or smaller than they really are. So if you've done a certain split for, let's say, a year, you've done 2 growing phases within that year and 2 mini cuts, and you look at yourself at the beginning of the year at, let's say, like 8% body fat, and at the end of the year at 8% body fat, and you see that your arms are lagging behind big time in your back, then you'd want to change your split into hitting your back more frequently and adding in a dedicated arm day if you don't already, which I think everybody needs a dedicated arm day because most people's arms are not genetically gifted and they're lacking in them. Or maybe, for example, maybe it's your chest that's lacking. So then maybe you'd want to add in a second chest day. So for someone that's lacking in their chest, for example, maybe they'd want to do chest and shoulders on Monday, and then back on Tuesday, and then legs on Wednesday, rest day, and then hit chest and shoulders again, and then arms. That'd probably be a really solid split for somebody that's lacking in their chest and their shoulders. But you need to adjust it according to you and not make the adjustments until you've seen what actually really needs worked on. But a lot of people just want to change things around because they're bored or they think things aren't working when they haven't really done it long enough to see if it's really working or not, which is just going to lead to you constantly changing things and never really making real progress and figure out what actually works for you. Because like I said already, and I say in almost every video, muscle growth takes a lot longer than a lot of people realize. A lot of people don't realize how much water weight and glycogen they are holding whenever they are in a growing phase, and so they think they put on a lot more muscle than they really did. And a lot of people finish their cuts way too soon and they don't actually get lean enough to see how much muscle they have on them because they're so anxious to get back into a growing phase, so they cut it off early. So they never really get to see like the foundation. They never get to see how much muscle they have where because they don't cut down lean enough, so they're still holding a lot of fat and water and glycogen in their muscles. And the big problem with that as well is then you're not starting your next growing phase at a nice insulin sensitive state, which is then going to make it a lot easier to put on even more fat in the next growing phase, which I've talked about before as well. And also, like I mentioned before, a lot of people get bored of the split way too soon. And it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, you have to have a split that you enjoy hitting, but there's a certain point where it's like you got to deal with doing the same stuff over and over again, because that's how you're going to ensure that you're progressively overloading, is doing the same movements, the same split over an extended period of time and growing in those movements, because you're constantly changing the movements up, changing the split up, you're not really gonna be able to assess progressive overload correctly. Another big factor that comes into making your split too is muscle soreness. So let's say you're hitting a muscle group twice a week, and the next time you go to hit that muscle group the following week, you're still sore from the week before. Well, then that means you're doing too much volume in the previous week, because if you're still sore and not able to progressively overload the next week, then at that point you're holding yourself back from growing. You want your muscles to be fresh, ready to go the following week so that you can give it 100%, push yourself to failure on every set, progressively overload, and then grow. So you need to look at your recovery within your split as well and make adjustments if you need there. The other thing you want to look at is, like we talked about, progressive overload. Is the weight in your lifts going up every week, or your reps with the same weight, or are you doing the same reps with the same weight, but it's getting easier, and then maybe every 2 weeks you're bumping up in weight or reps? That's another factor that you need to take into consideration, because if you're not progressively overloading, then something's wrong. Either you're not doing enough, or you're doing too much and not allowing yourself enough time to recover. So you need to assess that and then adjust accordingly as well. But I'm gonna finish up getting ready for the gym here, and then we're gonna go hit some back and hammies, probably my least favorite day of the week, but that's why I need to make sure I'm extra locked in during it, just so I can really fucking grind it out. My knees are still a little fucked up, so we might take it a bit easy on hams today, but we're gonna see whenever we get there how they're feeling.